The vitality and stability of our food supply is of concern to all Americans. And the meat processing industry is particularly important to people in my home state of Utah. During the height of the pandemic, meat packing plants either operated under significantly reduced processing capacity or in many cases closed entirely. The decreased supply of meat products led to increased prices for consumers and in some areas to a complete unavailability of certain meats, despite a backup of livestock among many growers. In this really difficult circumstance, we found that hog farmers were being forced to euthanize perfectly good hogs because they were quickly outgrowing the size restrictions of the pork processing plants. It's sickening that these farmers had to destroy perfectly good food while out-of-work Americans were paying higher prices for meat or going without meat altogether. Today, we're focused on the dynamics of our beef supply chain. Fortunately, cattle don't outgrow the processing plant quite as quickly and easily as hogs do. But we're still seeing significant impacts of processing reductions on the cattle industry. The numbers tell an interesting story. Beef prices are up, and packers are making strong profits. But many of our cattle producers are operating at negative margins, and some are quitting the business altogether. If these are natural glitches in the market caused by the pandemic itself, then the market should eventually right itself. However, if the market doesn't self-correct, we have to sort out the problem, whether it's bad actors, a lack of transparency, over-regulation, or over-consolidation, and do whatever it is that we can to fix it. First, we have to ensure that the market is operating freely and fairly, that there's no anti-competitive behavior forcing new entrants or the feeders who support them out of the market. If we find anti-competitive behavior, we need to use every legitimate means to stop it. Price discovery and transparency will go a long way toward ensuring a free and a fair market. The cash market determines the base price for cattle, which is then used for every other form of price determination. However, today, at most 20% of cattle are sold on the cash market, and that number is down from about 50 or 60% just 15 years ago. This lack of price transparency makes it difficult to discern whether these pricing dynamics are disrupting the balance of negotiating power or whether they're creating a negative feedback loop suppressing all cattle prices. Fairness in the market is impacted by packer consolidation. Where there's lack of competition, packers can dictate the rate of available supply. We need to ask why chain speeds are down. Is it due to lingering COVID restrictions? Is production below capacity because packers simply can't get employees to come back post-pandemic in light of unemployment insurance factors or other government-precipitated conditions? Is it low because the packers, not facing genuine competition in many, many areas of the country, recognize the benefits that flow to them if supply simply remains suppressed? We must also ask why this market is so concentrated. If we've approved too many mergers and made regulations so burdensome that massive, wide-scale consolidation is unavoidable, then we can't be surprised when we end up with these regional monopsonies. Congress is not, and should not be, responsible for structuring industries. Many of the proposed solutions I've seen, mostly mandating government intervention in the market, would ultimately increase the price of beef, especially the price of beef for the end consumer. Increasing the cost for the packer won't bless the producer, and it certainly will harm the consumer. What we should do is look for opportunities to free up the free market. Let's lift stifling federal regulations, which I believe are responsible for a lot of the problems we see in this industry. That's why I'm a proud sponsor of something called the PRIME Act, which would lift many of the onerous federal mandates on small meat packers, allowing them to sell their meat cuts as allowed by state law. Let's enforce antitrust law And if and when violations occur, then let's get out of the way and allow these businesses to thrive. You see, sometimes when we see a lack of competition, there's collusion among industry. Sometimes when we see a lack of competition, it's government that's driving that lack of competition. This is one of those places, I believe.